Before you learned to explain the world with words, your mind already knew how to understand it through symbols. Long before logic, titles, or identities, humans made sense of life through images, shapes, and signs that carried meaning beyond language. A flame meant transformation. A path meant destiny. A mask meant survival. These symbols were never random. They were mirrors of what lived inside the human psyche. And the truth is, that part of your mind never disappeared. Even now, beneath your thoughts and opinions, there is a deeper layer quietly guiding your reactions, your fears, your desires, and your choices. This is the unconscious, and symbols are its native language. That's why this experience is not about intelligence, belief, or analysis. It's about resonance. In a moment, you will be invited to choose one symbol, not the one you like the most, not the one that seems logical, but the one that pulls your attention without explanation, the one you feel drawn to before you can justify why. According to depth psychology, especially the work of Jung, symbols are expressions of archetypes, universal patterns that shape how we experience life. These archetypes are not labels or personality types. They are living forces within us, constantly influencing how we relate to ourselves and to the world. When a symbol attracts you, it's often because it reflects an archetype that is active in your life right now. Not who you are forever, but who you are becoming, confronting, or integrating. So before you choose, slow down. Take a breath. Let your attention soften. Don't overthink. Don't search for meaning yet. Simply notice which symbol feels familiar, or unsettling, or strangely comforting. There is no right or wrong choice here. Each symbol carries its own truth, and every truth reveals a different doorway into self-understanding. If you're enjoying this kind of psychological exploration so far, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps this space continue offering content that invites reflection instead of noise, and it also means you won't miss future journeys into the deeper layers of the mind. Now keep your focus gentle. In front of you are 5 symbols. Each one represents a different archetypal force. Each one speaks to a different relationship you have with yourself, with others, and with life. Choose the symbol that draws you in, not with effort, but with instinct. And as you make that choice, remember, what you are choosing is not just a symbol. You are choosing a mirror. In the next chapter, we will begin by exploring the meaning of the symbol that represents wholeness, balance, and the hidden center of the psyche, the archetype of the self. If the symbol you chose represents balance, symmetry, or a quiet sense of completeness, it points toward one of the most profound archetypes in Jungian psychology, the self. The self is not the ego. It is not your personality, your role, or the image you present to the world. The self represents something deeper, the totality of who you are. It is the hidden center of the psyche, where conscious awareness and the unconscious meet. People drawn to this symbol are often in a phase of life where fragmentation no longer feels acceptable. There may be a quiet fatigue with inner conflict, contradiction, or living divided between different versions of oneself. Even if your life looks stable from the outside, there is usually an inner pull toward alignment, a desire for things to make sense not just logically, but internally. This archetype often appears when a person is beginning, or being called into, a process Jung described as individuation. Individuation is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming whole. It means slowly integrating the parts of yourself you've accepted with the parts you've ignored, denied, or postponed. If this symbol resonated with you, you may be someone who reflects deeply before acting. You likely search for meaning rather than quick answers. There is often a natural gravitation towards self-knowledge, spirituality, or long-term understanding, even if you don't consciously label it that way. Your strength lies in perspective. You can hold complexity without rushing to simplify it. You sense that life is not meant to be solved, but understood. However, every archetype carries a shadow. When the self becomes an ideal rather than a process, it can lead to distance from others, from emotions, or from ordinary human imperfection. There can be a subtle temptation to observe life instead of fully participating in it, or to delay action while waiting for inner certainty. The message of this symbol is not to withdraw from the world, but to engage with it from a place of inner coherence. If you chose this symbol, it may be reflecting a moment of inner recentering. Either you are finding your balance, or you are being invited to return to it. And yet, wholeness does not mean purity. It includes what is uncomfortable, messy, and unresolved, which leads us naturally to the next symbol, the one that represents what we often avoid, repress, or fear within ourselves. In the next chapter, we will explore the symbol connected to the hidden side of the psyche, the shadow, and what it means when it calls for your attention. If the symbol you chose felt darker, heavier, or slightly unsettling, you were not drawn to it by accident. You were responding to the archetype Jung called the shadow. The shadow is often misunderstood. It is not the bad part of you, nor is it something to eliminate. The shadow is simply everything you learned, consciously or unconsciously, not to be. Traits you were discouraged from expressing, emotions that felt unsafe, desires that didn't fit the image you were expected to maintain, anger, need, vulnerability, power, sensitivity, even joy. All of these can become part of the shadow when they are pushed away rather than understood. People who resonate with this symbol are often in periods of inner tension or transition. You may feel a sense that parts of yourself have been silenced or compressed for too long. There can be moments of emotional intensity, contradiction, or restlessness, not because something is wrong, but because something wants to be acknowledged. The shadow tends to appear when growth requires honesty. If this symbol called to you, you are likely someone who senses depth beneath appearances. You may be drawn to psychological truths others avoid, or you may feel frustrated by superficial explanations for complex inner experiences. There is often a strong intuitive awareness that transformation begins where comfort ends. Your strength lies in authenticity. When integrated, the shadow becomes a source of vitality, creativity, and grounded confidence. People who befriend their shadow often develop a rare emotional realism. They understand themselves without idealization. But when the shadow remains unconscious, it can take control in indirect ways. It may appear as self-sabotage, projection onto others, or repeating patterns that feel out of character yet strangely familiar. What is denied does not disappear. It expresses itself in distorted forms. The message of this symbol is not confrontation for its own sake, but integration. To look at the shadow is not to judge it, but to listen. To recognize that every part of you once served a purpose, even if it no longer fits your current life. Choosing this symbol may reflect a moment when you are ready, or being invited, to reclaim something essential about yourself. And yet, as important as it is to face what lives in the dark, we do not exist only inwardly. We also move through the world, adapting, performing, and presenting ourselves to others. Which brings us to the next symbol, the one that represents the face you show, the roles you play, and the identity you wear in public. In the next chapter, we will explore the symbol of the persona, the social mask that both protects and limits us. If the symbol you chose felt familiar, composed, or socially recognizable, it points to the archetype Jung called the persona, the face you present to the world. The persona is not false by nature. It is functional. It is how we learn to belong, to communicate, to survive within families, cultures, and expectations. From an early age, we discover which expressions are welcomed and which are discouraged. Over time, we shape a version of ourselves that fits the environment we move through. This mask allows us to navigate life. It helps us work, lead, connect, and be understood. People drawn to this symbol are often highly aware of context. You likely sense what is appropriate in different situations and adapt with ease. There is an instinctive understanding of roles, responsibilities, and social dynamics. Others may see you as reliable, composed, or competent, someone who has it together. Your strength lies in your ability to function in the world. You can translate inner intentions into outer behavior. You understand that life requires structure, and you know how to operate within it. But the persona becomes problematic when it is mistaken for the whole self. When identity becomes too tightly bound to roles, the professional, the caretaker, the strong one, the agreeable one, something inside may begin to feel distant or unheard. There can be a quiet exhaustion that comes from constantly maintaining an image, even a successful one. If this symbol resonated with you, there may be an inner tension between who you are and who you feel expected to be. Not necessarily conflict, sometimes just a subtle sense of disconnection. You may function well yet feel that something personal remains unexpressed. The danger of over-identifying with the persona is not deception, but forgetfulness. You forget that the mask is meant to be worn, not lived inside. The message of this symbol is balance. The persona does not need to be destroyed. It needs to be loosened. When you remember that it is a tool rather than an identity, it becomes flexible again. You gain the freedom to step in and out of roles instead of being defined by them. Choosing this symbol may indicate a moment of questioning. Who am I when no one is watching? Which parts of me exist beyond performance, approval, or expectation? As this awareness grows, attention naturally turns inward, not toward roles, but toward the inner dynamics that shape emotion, attraction, and relationship. Because behind every social mask lives a deeper polarity, quietly influencing how you connect with yourself and with others. In the next chapter, we will explore the symbol connected to inner balance and polarity, the anima and animus, and how they shape your emotional and relational life. If the symbol you chose felt dual, fluid, or quietly magnetic, it reflects the archetype Jung described as the anima and the animus, the inner polarity that shapes how we feel, think, relate, and connect. Despite how these terms are often misunderstood, anima and animus are not about gender roles. They represent complementary psychological energies within every person. The anima is associated with emotion, intuition, sensitivity, and relational depth. The animus relates to reason, structure, assertion, and direction. Both exist within each of us, regardless of sex. People drawn to this symbol are often navigating questions of balance between feeling and thinking, receptivity and action, softness and firmness. You may sense that life asks you to integrate opposing tendencies rather than choose one over the other. This archetype strongly influences relationships. The inner anima or animus often becomes projected onto others, especially romantic partners. We are drawn to people who seem to embody qualities we have not yet fully owned within ourselves. Attraction, fascination, and even conflict can arise from this unconscious dynamic. If this symbol resonated with you, you may be particularly sensitive to emotional undercurrents. You might feel deeply, yet struggle to articulate what you feel. Or you may think clearly, yet sense a need to soften control and allow emotion more space. There is often a longing for connection that feels whole, not just intellectually stimulating or emotionally intense, but balanced. Your strength lies in integration. When anima and animus are in dialogue, creativity expands, empathy deepens, decisions become wiser because they are informed by both logic and feeling. Relationships gain maturity because projections slowly turn into understanding. But imbalance can create difficulty. When the anima or animus remains unconscious, it may dominate from behind the scenes. This can appear as emotional overwhelm, rigidity, idealization of others, or repeated disappointment in relationships. You may expect others to carry qualities that are meant to be developed within yourself. The message of this symbol is inner reconciliation. Rather than seeking completion outside, this archetype invites you to listen inwardly, to ask which inner voice has been ignored, which quality has been overused, which side of yourself needs acknowledgement rather than control. Choosing this symbol often reflects a phase of emotional growth, a moment when inner harmony matters more than outer validation, when connection begins at home, within the psyche. And as this inner balance strengthens, a new question naturally arises, not about who you are internally, but about how you move forward in the world. Because understanding alone is not the end of the journey. At some point, awareness must become action. In the final chapter, we will explore the symbol of conscious will and courage, the hero, and what it means when you are called to step forward and choose your path. If the symbol you chose suggested movement, direction, or a quiet sense of determination, It reflects the archetype of the hero, not as a conqueror but as conscious will in action. In Jungian psychology, the hero represents the part of the psyche that steps forward despite uncertainty. It is the ego when it accepts responsibility for choice, not because the path is clear, but because remaining still is no longer possible. People drawn to this symbol are often standing at a threshold. There may be a sense that something in life is asking to be faced, a decision, a change, a truth that can no longer be postponed. This does not always look dramatic on the outside. Sometimes it is an inner shift, a quiet resolve to live more honestly. The hero archetype is not about dominance or victory over others. It is about courage in relation to oneself, the courage to confront fear without denying it, to move forward without guarantees, to accept that growth requires effort and meaning requires participation. If this symbol resonated with you, you may feel a growing tension between comfort and authenticity. There is often an awareness that while reflection is valuable, it must eventually turn into action. Insight alone no longer satisfies. Something needs to be lived. Your strength lies in agency. You understand consciously or instinctively that your life cannot be outsourced to circumstance or expectation. Even when external factors limit options, the inner stance remains yours to choose. But the hero also carries a shadow. When this archetype is over-identified with, life can become an endless struggle. There may be a tendency to measure worth through effort, endurance, or sacrifice. Rest can feel undeserved. Vulnerability can feel like failure. The challenge then is to remember that courage also includes knowing when to pause. The message of this symbol is conscious direction, not force. Choosing the hero does not mean you must fight everything. It means you are ready to engage with life intentionally, to stop waiting for certainty before acting, to trust that meaning is shaped through movement, not perfection. And now, as this journey comes to a close, it's important to remember something essential. Archetypes are not boxes. They are processes. You are not only one of them. You move through them. At different moments, you integrate wholeness, face the shadow, wear the persona, balance inner polarity, and step forward as the hero. What matters is awareness, noticing which force is guiding you now. If you feel comfortable, share in the comments which symbol you chose and what resonated with you. Reflection deepens when it's expressed, and if this exploration offered you insight, consider liking the video and staying connected. This space exists to slow things down, to replace noise with understanding, and to continue these journeys into the deeper layers of the mind. Your choice was not random. It was a conversation with yourself.